Election 2026. We got to welcome the Supervisor of Election, Ms. Carolyn Fawkes. How you doing?
I'm fine. Great. Thanks for the opportunity to be here and share elections update with you, Mr. Peter Ottley.
Thank you for coming. And it's let's talk a little bit about elections. People hear about the board and what does it take to prepare for election?
Well, it takes a lot. It happens behind the scene, and a lot of folks ask us, what do we do in a non-election year? We're supposed to be prepared to do an election at any time because it can be a special election. Something could happen with one of our elected leaders, and we have to put on a special election. So we have to be prepared to conduct an election at any time with a timely notice. We respond back to whether the legislature or the governor say we need this election. We tell them we need 45 days to conduct it. Just like you see in the other Caribbean islands, you could call a by-election or you could call an election at any time. Behind the scenes, the staff, like I said, day to day, we are registering voters, we are canceling voters, we are updating voter information, whether they get married or the address change, or they they want some addition change in the party or the area. So we do registration daily in our 3 offices. We have an office on St. Croix, located in the Sunny Hills upper building. It's 8 to 5. In St. Thomas is upstairs at Lockhart, the bank, operational 8 to 5. And in St. John, we do 2 days a week, Tuesdays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Upstairs at Marketplace on the 3rd floor.
So, talk a little bit about your staff. How many people you have working in your staff on the islands that makes this happen?
So the staff in the office we have is 13 of us. So you have 4 election assistants, the deputy supervisor, and myself. And then the board has an executive assistant. So that's the total of the staff. But during an election, we hire poll workers. And so that's where you see the volume of people. And they are hired and they do the election outside. My staff stays in the office. So we don't do outside operations really. Mostly if you have a registration conducted outside of the demonstration, that's the board. The board with the executive assistant. We do early voting. The office as the supervisor, we run the early voting process. But on election day, we hire election officials, voting technicians, and transportation company, catering company, etc. So it's a lot of moving pieces behind the scene. We work with VIPD, Department of Finance, Department of Property and Procurement, and sometimes local and non-governmental entities like the University of the Virgin Islands. We utilize the center down there. And St. Croix, we utilize the St. Joseph Community Center. So we use other entities, St. Dunstan School and Sports Park and Recreation. We utilize their building at Canigata. So if we need to use a facility, we will contact that agency. Of course, it comes with a cost. And so that's where we get an election budget to conduct the election. Again, cost of everything has gone up over the years, so we too are looking for an increase in the election operational budget for 2026. 2026 is a gubernatorial year election, so every 4 years that cycle. And historically, during a gubernatorial election, more voters participate. So we anticipate the same thing this election cycle.
Let me ask. I was curious as to who's responsible for, say, voters' turnout. Is it the board as far as you doing marketing, encouraging people to come and vote and register? Or is it the candidates or the parties?
I think it's a total group, I wouldn't say, but majority is the parties, right? Or the family when they're growing up. Your parents teach you the civic rights of being a voter and participating. So registering alone just to get the ID card is not the full process. You need to register, you need to participate, and you need to cast your vote. And then you need to follow up, so you could ask questions, you could give ideas. On our website, www.vivote.gov, there's an area where you could submit recommendations or concerns. And the board also do town halls where you could come and give your opinion of laws that you want to see created or laws that you want to see change or repeal. So I start with the family. Then you'll go to the political party, right? They should have a platform. They should have a website. They too should be out there encouraging persons to register to join their party. So they're responsible also for making sure that they participate in the process. And then it comes to the Board of Election and Office of the Supervisor. Again, we're the top tier. Again, our duty is to register you. We could encourage as much as we can, and the board go out and do voter registration and demonstration. For us, you have to come to the office. But we can't push it as much as I think the community can, the candidates can, that's last, because based on the appeals of the candidates, they will come out. So the candidates will have a role in that, or aspirants when they first decide that they're going to run, and those persons participating in the process. I like some of the countries, we talk about democracy, but democracy has its pros and cons. Then you go to Australia or some of those other countries, you mandated to register to vote. Everyone is a voter. Just like 18, you want to go to get your driver's license, well, and you want to learn swimming, well, voting is just as important or more important. And they make it mandatory. You sign up to register automatically when you turn 18. You don't have a choice. Just like some countries have where you have to serve in the military for a number of years, when we used to have the draft, then it's the same thing. So my parents at 17 and a half, they told me that this is important. And they took me to register to vote. And I've been voting since at 18 years old. Even if I'm not in the territory, I do absentee. Because I know it was a commitment that I made, and it's part of my civics rights. Not joining the military made me know that that is important, but that added to it. By being in the military, I saw how important it is to vote and why it's, persons die for this right. We still have countries or places in America that suppress that right. So we who are free here in this Virgin Islands at this time, I think it's the opportunity for us to participate. Let your voice be heard.
When we do elections, at the end of the elections, we hear, they cheat, they this. How does that process work? Is it easy to cheat an election?
Well, not really. And again, persons say that all the time, but again, they have no proof. And we have an open, transparent process. We invite them to come to see the setup, the testing of the machines, and then the process at the polling place. You have poll watchers, so they're watching everything that's happened. And when it comes back to the office under the VIPD supervision in a vehicle, and you come into the office and it's the election conference room, and you see how they do the process. It's no way. I believe in these equipment, and again, it's been tested and tried in many places. But recently, when we introduced this to Anguilla, they'd had a contest election, and they did the recount with the machine and without the machine, and it came out the same. So I increased my trust and ability in these machines 100%, because again, we do the setting up, but the board tests the machine. So you have two different entities certifying that it's good to go, and you can come and see they have to test every ballot, every candidate on the ballot. They have to give them a vote or not give them a vote and see how it works. Then it's sealed and it's taken to the voting center. The seals are recorded, and it's when it's returning, the judge seals it, record that seal, and bring it back to the office. It's unsealed in front of the public, put into the machine, and go from there. None of our machines are connected electronically out via internet at the voting centers. And that was one thing we started with. In the States, they are. But we make sure here it's not connected to the internet, so it cannot be infiltrated. New York used these machines. There's 23 states and 4 territories that utilize these same machine. So they won't be utilizing these machines if they were problematic, if they had issues with them. So I'm saying again, it's been there. This company has been in existence for over 40 years. So it's not a company that just started this election operation. So I believe in them. Like you said, I came from the military background for 32 years. Yes, I'm a pilot, and we're very technical. And so we instituted some security measures that we can't mention on the public. But there are security measures in place that we can know if anyone tamper with the machine.
Let's talk a little bit about when you first got the job as the head honcho. What progress and changes have you made to improve the system under your watch?
Well, again, thank you for that question. So I came on board in August of 2013, 2014, 2015. So the first one I'd like to champion is early voting. Early voting started under my leadership. It was pushed by Senator Gittins and former Chair O member Adelbert Bryan. Look at with other board members that join on. So we did the research, we looked at that law, and we implemented it. And it has been increasing over the years, and so we look at that. I also got an upgrade in my staff to senior election assistant. Before, everyone was just election assistant. And I'm like, there was no way for upward mobility. So I said we should have a senior election assistant. So we implemented that position. Presently, we have a financial person. Again, pushed under my leadership. We never had a financial person for the 60 years we were in operation. So that's, and I missed that position when I told you the number, but yeah, the financial person just started a year. October made her a year on the job. So that's one of the things. Office space, when I came on board, the St. Croix office and the St. John office was deplorable, was, non-conducive for employee morale. And so we transitioned. In St. John, we moved from where we were, which was one of the education building by O'Connor's place. The steps were bad and ADA not compliable. And so we moved to Marketplace in an upstairs suite there on third floor. And then in St. Croix, Sunny Eyes, working with them, we transitioned over to the main Sunny Eyes shopping center. And so we designed that building at what we would like, because in traveling around to the other election places, and again my military background, seeing how office develop, we changed our building. So in St. Croix we have a tabulating room, and then we have a secure room. So the tabulating room is a glass room where you can go in and you could stay outside in the conference room and watch the board doing their process, not behind closed doors. So we had a lot of media, and all the media couldn't fit in the room where we was in St. Croix. So we had to get a feed out to the parking lot, so all the media, and then rotate the media in. They didn't feel well thinking someone get more time than them. So with this tabulating room in glass, they can sit in the conference room, which have half glass, and look into that room and see what's going on. We also have a secure storage room because we have to maintain the billed ballots for 2 years. So the 2024 election results are still in our office. We get rid of them through shredding with a shredding company, Capital, and prior to in 2026. So if the primary is August, July, August time frame, we're getting rid of 2024 primary election ballot. November, just before November, we get rid of those ballots. Again, thanks to Bob Brian and many others, and we got the CARES Act funding, we have 2 set of bins. For a number of years, we had to empty the bins, put them in boxes, the ballots, and then to utilize the bins for that election. But again, we went ahead with the CARES Act funding, and we buy double bins. So we have the bins for the primaries, exactly for the primary, the bins for the general, exactly for the general. We also ordered some additional equipment. So this equipment that we're using now, the DS200, was first employed under my leadership, 2024. But the equipment was in elections from 2012 or 2011. So they weren't utilized at the time. We had the Shubtronic. So I came on board. We had a mandate that we have to utilize this new system, the DS200. Why? Because the DS200, mandated by federal law, have 3 editable ways to edit it. You must have the paper version. So you put your paper in the ballot or the express vote card. That's one. You have the tape that comes off the machine. Once the results are tabulated, there's a tape. And you have the jump drive. So you have 3 ways. So it's very hard to steal because the paper documents are there that you can count and verify. You have the tape and you have the jump drive. And again, that was pushed by former chair of the board, Adelbert Bryan, and other board members they had 3 companies came into the Virgin Islands upstairs in Port Authority conference room and showed the equipment to the board and property and procurement back then. And that's the machine that they selected. And like I said, it's used in 23 states and at least 4 territories. So these are what we have. So what I do is I increase the amount. We had the Automat when I came on board for technology. I increased it to the express vote. And that's what we have right now. And then we bought a few, and then we got more funding federally, and we bought extra. So now the ADA disabled person can vote for themselves independently. They don't need anybody to help them. And one of our great proponent of this is Rafael Cornero. He have been in there and used the machine by himself without anybody, because they have the headphones where you can hear if you're sight impaired. If you're hearing impaired, they have the screen that you could make it bigger and brighter. And then they also have sip and puff for those who can't use the hands or whatever. There's a paddle that they utilize. And it also has braille. So braille they could feel with their hands and vote. So it's independent. The last thing we did after that 2 years ago, now we got a printer. So a printer for the machine. Before we used to just take the tape and do whatever. But now we have a printer for when the voter comes in and checks in, it prints out the ballot information. Hey, you're going to have to get a ballot from Charlotte Amalie High School. Every ballot based on where you registered is got your name at the top. So if we have 2,000 persons registered at Charlotte Amalie High School, we can't get 201 voters because we know something wrong. So you have to get the ballot applicable to your voting place. Again, another push by Brian that we need to have the ballots marked, and again, other board members. Watlington also did some of these changes. So I want to give them credit because they're not on the board. And I did Bill and former supervisor of election Abramson's legacy, because he was the one always pushing for this financial person also. We did celebrate our 60th anniversary, so we had a big celebration for that, for what we accomplished over the years. And so we have increased technology. When you go to, and the last one I have for now is the online voter registration. Again, for the time I came in, that was one of my, I said we will have online voter registration. And we got that implemented January last year. So you can register to vote online, submit your documents. We check and verify before we put you into our system. If you have any questions, we reach out to you. But again, you can't be in the States, a resident of the States, and register to vote online, because you have drop-down box with information that you have to supply to us specific to the Virgin Islands. And if you don't have that information and can't show proof, you're not going to be able to register. So you have to be a resident of the Virgin Islands to register. So those are just some that I remember, and I have a lot more. But I continue to seek technology and upward mobility for the staff, or because without people, nothing matters. Your staff is the most important asset that you have in any organization.
How do you deal, or what special attention you give to the handicapped and the elderly?
So we treat them with care. We love them. That's one day we'll be there. So the elderly, whenever they come to our office, we put them priority. We always have to make sure we have seating for them. And usually a lot of them do early voting, or come with a family member to do early voting. Even at the site, we do make sure we have chairs available for them on election day voting. And the disabled, we also treat them the same and make sure that they're able to cast their vote independently. That's what the federal law mandates. So we treat them well, extra. We put them ahead of everybody else, and we try to take care of our seniors and our disabled.
Let's talk a little bit about poll watchers. Who are these people, and what do they do?
So our poll watchers, again, is our most important asset on election day. We do have an application that you can go on the website and apply to be a poll worker. We look for poll workers that are diverse, Hispanic, they could be male or female. We try to deal with our ethnicity. Recently, we've been hiring some Caucasians and everything else. So we try to be as diverse in our community with our poll workers. So they're the ones that monitor and manage the election and election day. They are trained by us. They have to attend numerous mandated training, and then they have hands-on training. So they have to know how the machine operate, what to do if it malfunctions, etc., etc. And so they are trained. Over the years, we maintain some of the same one. They're seasoned, they're experienced, and a lot more elderly. But in the States, it's the same thing. But again, with technology, we're starting to lose some of the elderly ones, because some of them don't want to go on and learn all this new technology. So we're always in the recruitment phase. So we are recruiting, and I did send you a flyer that I want you to advertise every now and then so we could get some poll workers. So they're your neighbors, they're your teachers, they're your family members. So when you talk negatively about the election, it's everyone. It's not just the office, it's not just the board. It impacts everyone that work with our system. And so in St. Thomas District, especially in St. John, we're losing some of our poll workers. They're like, we don't want to go through the headache with all this negativity and the mistrust or the false accusations that are happening. But it's happening all over. It's not only here, but because we're a small community, some people get more impacted. So they are trained by us. Again, a lot of our teachers, they're in our educational system. And that's what I say all the time. Virgin Islanders, we don't keep a secret, right? So these workers out there working for us, if we were cheating or doing things wrong, they would tell somebody, because they won't keep a secret. So again, they're the one that runs the election day to day. When you're out at a voting center, who is in charge of that voting center is the judge, not the board member, not the supervisor. I go to every voting center to see what's going well, what's not going well. If they have an issue, they say, supervisor, we might need another machine here. Then I reach back to my office and say, we need to deploy another machine here. But I don't go there and tell them, do this, do that. The judge is responsible at the voting center on that day. They take notes and they write down what's going right, what's going wrong, and then we look at it after and improve for the next process. Again, the election officials, we have monitors, we have e-poll book clerks, we have voting technicians. They're the one that deal with the machine if something goes wrong, and we have them at every voting center. And we went to that voting center is another thing I implemented, right? And that was pushed by some of the board members. Ifani Joseph, I think, was one, where we combined a lot of the polling places that used to be all over long ago. So we went from 14 down to 5. St. Clair, we had 14 polling places. We went down to 5. Primary, we'll go down to 3. St. Thomas, same thing. We had 11. We went down to 4. In St. John, we had 2. We retained the same 2 because we don't want to disenfranchise Coral Bay and Cruz Bay. So they always had 2, so we maintained the same 2 there. But it's a big difference because now you could vote anywhere. So you here and your voting center is in Tutu, but you can vote here in fact because you're down here working. It's quicker to go here. You could vote anyway. But once you go in there, you get in your ballot marked with Charlotte Amalie. So although you are Tutu, your ballot is going to say Charlotte Amalie. That's the ballot you're going to get. Feed it into there, and then the system's going to tag you as voting. So you could try to leave Tutu and come back to Charlotte Amalie to vote again. The system going to show red to that e-poll book worker. She's going to say, it's showing red, it seems like you voted already. But they're not going to argue with you if you said, no, I didn't, whatever. They're going to give you a provisional ballot. They're not going to give you another ballot because, no, they're not sure. They could give you a provisional ballot and you vote on that. And then they check it when they get back after election. The board checks it to see if it's right. Is that your name? Is that your... And if the provisional ballot is accurate, then it's counted. Because like you said, you have juniors and seniors, so a junior might vote and they might click the senior name by error. So this is a way for them to double check each other. But we try to, be as accurate as we can. We double check. And like I said, when it print out now, that junior could say, hey, this is not me. I'm a junior. This was my dad. He's a senior. And they can make that correction there. But that's the only thing like that would happen. But they're very accurate system. Or cost the election official, like I say, they're trained in everything. They train how to handle the disabled and the elderly, how to, consideration of others, how to assist. Sometimes people don't hear. You can't talk too loud to them or too soft. So they train in all these kind of techniques to be able to deal with an election on that day. Yes, it's to be high tension because there's a lot going on, but we want to do it right. And we lead towards election. On election day, we operate in, like I just tell you, 5 operation centers, 4 there, 3 there. And they all have to be operational. They all have to be in sync. We don't have the opportunity to redo an election. So we have to do it right the first time.
Let me ask you, like you say that, what happens if a computer go down or something happen that you didn't anticipate?
Well, we always have to plan for more fila, right? So we always have backup. So we have to have a backup machine that we could deploy. And then if it's something beyond that, then again, if you have 2 and you go to 1, we even have to plan for power because some places don't have generator or whatever. So if they don't have power, the machines could operate an hour without power. Then after that, they have an emergency bin where the voter will put the ballot in an emergency bin. And whenever the power come back or the end of the evening, the judge will feed them with public watching, poll watchers into the machine. So we have to prepare for all of that. Murphy's Law. You always prepare for the unexpected. And so far in the last 10 elections that I've done, times 2 each, we have had no major issues.
I'm just here thinking about, okay, now, let's talk about some of the candidates now. When they challenge the board and said, we're going to sue you for X, Y, Z, how does that process work?
Well, we know we are a public figure, so always the legal system is always there for persons who think they may want some clarification or think they're right. So it depends on how they sue. So they sue the office of the supervisor. Again, it's not personal, it's the office. So in the code, the AG represents both of us, right? Both of us. There are times when the office of the supervisor and the board might be in different direction. In the past, they would say that one of us had to get our own attorney. That's the past. Last 2 years, this U.S. Attorney General representative said that the Attorney General office could represent both entities. So we'll see how that goes forward. Haven't happened yet. So they can sue. It goes to the court. The one that handles elections territorially is the Superior Court, right? So they file a Superior Court and then they go through and they let us know, they send us back. If I get a court order, I send it to the AG office. This is what I got. And then they do the research, they meet with me, and we go through pros and cons or whatever they're saying there. Similar with the board. Now, if they've sued federally from outside of the Virgin Islands, right? Every district or federal filing that comes into the Virgin Islands, goes to the AG office, and has made a way to the governor, because now you're suing the whole entity. So the federal system, they notify the governor. Then the AG office will look at it and see if it's election related. Then they'll get with us, do the research of the law, and prepare the rebuttal or whatever. District court in the Virgin Islands, similar. It goes to the district court, they send us whatever filing they need, and then it goes to the AG office, and then they decide whether they're representing the board or the office of the supervisor. And so that's the process.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about what do people need to know in this upcoming election as far as preparing yourself, being aware of, the process, being aware of who's running. So when you go in there, you're making no mistake and all that kind of stuff.
Well, the beginning is the voter need to make sure that they're registered and they're current. And you can do that by looking on our website even or calling the office. So www.vivote.gov. There's an area called the lookup. You go in there, you click on that tab, and you put in your information. Follow the instructions thoroughly. You got to put in your name, your address when you registered. You may have moved when you registered 2 years ago or 10 years ago, but they're not asking for that information. They're asking for the address when you registered, the zip code of that address. And so we have some challenges, persons putting in where they are presently and not remembering that they've registered a couple of years ago with a different zip code. So once you put in the zip code and the address and your name, it comes up and it tells you whether you're active or inactive. If you are inactive, you can call the office, or there's a form online you fill out and say, I want to become active again, and you send that to us and you become active. This new process is different than before. Before, when we cancel you, you'll have to come in and bring in all your documents again. So to register, you need either a U.S. passport, your birth paper, or naturalization certificate, or a DD-214 for those been in the military. We usually do baptismal certificate. Also, for most Virgin Islanders are baptized in the churches. So those are the documents, one or the other, not all five. You need one or the other. We do not take copies of any document. And we also could use the passport card. So some person got the passport card, you can bring that also. So you need any one of those to register. If you're changing your address, you could use a WAPA bill or a telephone bill to show your address change or whatever. If you're changing your name, married title or not, you bring in the marriage certificate. Or if you divorce, you want your divorce decree, this is now my name. So those documentation are needed for any of those changes that you may need to have. For the party, you don't need to know nothing. You can change your party up to 30 days before the election. So first thing you do is register to vote and know your status. Second thing you do is know your polling location. Or like I say, you could vote anywhere. But you can go online and look up and see all the various polling areas that we have. And so you're familiar with what's going on. Next is you can visit any one of our office. We do have demonstration machines there set up every day. So if you're unfamiliar with the machine, you can come in there and practice. There are demonstration ballots that we have in there that you can utilize to practice. And then when they're doing outreach where they have demonstrations or registration out of the office with the board, you can attend those so you can learn more about the machines and ask questions. So that's your first step. Then the next step is starting, and I will go to my calendar. If you want me to do the calendar now, or I could do it. Yeah. So the calendar will tell you all the other steps that we have, and that was published back in December, and it's available online or in the office. So starting March 17th, which is Tuesday coming up, we have training for aspirants. So everyone is called an aspirant until they're certified to be a candidate. So again, follow your aspirants. If you believe in one of them that's running, you go to the launch that they have the different political activities and ask your questions, see what the platform, if they align with your beliefs and values, and then you sign up to back that person. But March 17th, Tuesday, 5:30 in the evening, on St. Croix, we're doing training for those who how to complete the nomination petitions and papers. The same thing on St. Thomas on the 19th. St. Thomas 5:30 in the elections office. The deputy supervisor doing both of those training. April 14th starts when you could start picking up your nomination petition packages and papers. That's from our office, and they're available in all three offices on the 14th of April. The 19th of April is the first day you can circulate them. Why? Because we want to make sure everybody has a level playing ground. So if you pick up yours on the 14th and run out there and gather your signatures, and John don't come here and he picks up his on the 18th, you know what I'm saying? And don't have enough time to get it. So we want everybody to start at the same time. You could pick up your petition early, review the packages, familiarize yourself with it there, read the information. We have a lot of persons do not read the information in their packets, and they come asking the same question or doing things wrong. So read all the documents in your package. They're put there for a reason. So we want them to familiarize with them. And so the first day to circulate is a Sunday, but that's based on the law. We don't pick the day. That's when you could go around and get your signatures from persons that support you and your values. For the parties, whether you're Republican, ICM, or Democrat, you have to get 50 signatures. But we always encourage you to get more than 50, because you may not know if that person is registered or not, or inactive or not. So you always get more, because we have to check them against our system. For the independent, they have to get 100 signatures. So they have to get more than 100 to make sure you have 100 that's going to be good. That's the first step. Then the 28th of April on St. Thomas, the training and the campaign disclosure report. And on St. Croix, it will be on the 22nd, and that's done by myself, the supervisor, because that comes under my purview, training of the campaign disclosure report. Then May, I'm just going to do up to May for now. First day that you can turn in your paper to my office between 12 and 6 p.m. is May 12th. That's a Tuesday. Now, that's when they bring in back the documentation. They say, I want to run, and they bring all the documentation, notarized, back to us. The last day to turn them in by 6 p.m. again is 19th of May on a Tuesday. 6:01 doesn't cut it. It goes by the clock in our office, not your clock, and we can't deviate. I've turned people around for 6:01, and they had turned Watlington around for 6:01 before my time, and he was a board member. So we don't take no preference. Everyone must follow the law, and it's the law based on our clock in our office. So that's the last day to file, and then you have the last day to withdraw, the 24th of May. So if you decide I turn in myself but I don't want to run again, you have to withdraw. If you don't withdraw, your name shows up on the ballot. So you could tell all your friends and family, I'm not running. But if you don't withdraw by the 24th of May, your name going on the ballot anyway. And then we have the 24th, the same day, persons with similar last surnames. They have to send to me in writing. Because you have the same name like somebody else, you have to let me know how we'll put your name on there. And then we have the deadline for filing a substitute. Sometimes you might say you running, but no, you want to change to your brother or your son. You could substitute the name of the person for your paperwork, and then they got the same information you got. 22 letters, and that's important because I just did track a little bit. So you hear a little bit in the news about Donna Fred and her name issue talks about the same thing. So you could file your name as registered, but you can request to put a nickname on the ballot, which has been the law forever, because Albert Brian and Smokey Fred, all of them put their nicknames on the ballot. But this ballot could only take 22 characters, right? Including space and that. So we, in coordination with that candidate, decide this is the name that you're going to utilize because of the 22 characters. Even Bush Schulter, he have to take a letter out of his name to make it fit. So I'm saying this is not new. This is what we do, and everybody has that choice if you want a nickname on the ballot. So that's up to June, and future on we could do the rest of the calendar. But I encourage everyone to look on the line, look at the calendar if you have any questions. And the 25th of August is when you're casting of the lots for the positions on the ballots.
We've seen a list of potential candidates in the gubernatorial, and there's maybe a person for governor, missing name for lieutenant governor. How does that work?
Well, right now, that's nothing of our concern, right? They are all aspirants at this point. So once they come and pick up their package in April, and once they file in May, that's when we know who is who. So everybody could say they're running out. That doesn't mean anything to our office. Until you officially files in the office in May, that's when you'll know who's running. And once they do that, we have to do a public release that night to the media, and we list all the names that have been certified to run as a candidate.
Is there a fee that the candidates have or parties have to pay to participate?
Not to the election system of the Virgin Islands. In the states, they do. Some states do, based on the position that you're running for. And I know former Senator General Sarro was looking into something like that here, based on the position that you're running for. So then that fee will go into the government to help the government with the election funding in the future. But in the states, they do. And the governors and the president have to pay to run too. In every state, they have to pay. So that's how they get their money.
Okay, I love it. Now, let's talk about what would you like to see improve as far as from the community. You know, it's like, okay, you have a show, and the performance of the people who benefits, whether you vote or don't vote, these people are making decisions about your life. You understand? And that's one aspect of it. The next thing that crossed my mind too, how do you incorporate persons that English is not their number one language?
So for us, that's why we have to have a Spanish employee in each office, and I do have that requirement. And then on our ballots, we have to put it in Spanish and English. So Spanish and English is mandated by law. On our ballots, it is in Spanish and English. The only thing that's not in Spanish is the name of the candidate, right? So the aspirants and the candidate, they need to make sure people know their name. But the party information, we'll have to put Democrat in Spanish and English. We'll have to put all the instructions in Spanish and English. And so that's as per law. In New York and some of the other states, they have various languages, 5, 6, 9, and they have to put ballots in all those languages.
Oh, I was just, here, Creole.
So that's not a language of the U.S. So the U.S. only only in the law have Spanish and English for us right now. Unless they change the law here and put Creole and other languages they want, then right now we only got to go by those, Spanish and English. That's okay. We welcome that. It's in our law, Spanish and English. That's what I just said. So that's the law. I like to run through the numbers quick before you go to the next question. So because we got active and inactive, so I'll leave this with you. But the total for St. Croix active voters is 14,152. The St. John 1,146, and then St. Thomas 13,098. For a total of 28,396 active voters. Inactive, and then you could see they have them by party and everything, so I'll leave that with you. Inactive voters now, because we had a lot change that we could do active and inactive. And the reason for that is you get a better statistical picture when you have the active voters count. If you do the total number of voters and half of them don't vote, you're not getting a true picture of participation. Participation in the Virgin Islands used to be the 60% range, from young all the way up. But then we got to this where we stopped canceling voters. And so now you don't have a process to say who's active and who is not. So we had this law, and then it was passed by the legislature. So that's why even if you look at our website, every month we put up 2 listings. One to show you the active numbers and one to show you the inactive. The inactive, like I say, are still registered on our books, and they could walk in on election day and say, I want to become active again. They check of application, they fill out just to make sure the address and different thing is still current and it's still up, so we could update it if it's not. And they call the office and we turn them back to active. They can be turned back to active by the persons in the voting center, because they hired help for us and we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. So that's only done by the staff back in the office, and that's why they have to be in the office to reach back support. They're not out at the voting center on election day. So I'll now go to the inactive. Inactive in St. Croix, 12,818. St. John, 1,221. So you could see the St. John numbers. They have as much inactive as active, So we have to reach out to these persons and get them back to be participative in the election process. And then St. Thomas, 13,563. And I told you they have 13,098 active. They got more inactive than active. So the total inactive, 27,602 compared to 28,396. So we need to reach out to these persons that are still on our roll, still in the Virgin Islands, and get them to participate.
Let me ask you now. Say persons that die. How would you know if you're...
So persons that die, we have a requirement in the law. Department of Health sends us a listing every month or quarterly that tells us all the persons that are deceased, and we go into our system and we update it. But then you may have persons that die in the States or die in a Caribbean island or another country, and we have no way of knowing. So that's why those persons will now end up on the inactive eventually. Because if they don't vote for a number of 10, we saying we ain't seeing them, they ain't participating, so they become inactive. But we can't take them off the roll unless we know for sure that they died. So we do that. So now we went out and expanded with Expedia and another TransUnion and another credit card company. So now we got a contract with them, and they're the ones helping us with our database, because they could see globally, internationally. And so they are doing, every month they will send us a report, or who's up, who's not. We send them a list of names and they check that for us and they let us know. So we have different ways we use it. We also was trying to interact with the Social Security Department, but they, Virgin Islands wise, federal wise, they said they do not want to participate in sending us any information about that. And then Human Services, they don't have no idea. They have other things with federal laws that they can share some data. So the only person we could share data with is BMV. But that's a good question. Leading into that, which is the next one, is also the courts. The courts also send us a report quarterly with everyone who conducted a felon. So they too we have to take off our list. We put them in suspension. So if you conduct a felon, we put you in suspension, we bring in a court order, and we see whatever the order was to do. Restitution, a fine, and whatever. And then we have to calculate that to see when will be your next time to be eligible to be a voter. So again, like you said, this is how we do behind the scenes. People don't know a lot that we do behind the scenes. So we do that. And so we have some, and in a couple, last year, I think the governor commuted some persons, and they had 2 of them on that list that was voters. So we switched them back to voter. And they're happy to be back to be a voter again, because that's their right. And that law was put in years ago by Senator O.C. Richards, because it was been put before. It's like once a felon, always a felon. But he said, they changed the law. Once they regain their rights, we have to give them the ability to vote. So we do that. We also behind the scenes work with VIPD. If someone gets in a terrible accident and they don't have any ID, they could come to us, get a certified copy of that person's ID, especially if they have to send them off for medical treatment, because the family is under so much pressure and stress, they can't find the information for that person. And we had a young man one time that got in a bad accident in St. Croix by Plaza, and the vehicle burned up. He nearly got burned in the vehicle. They got him out, they saved him, but then his ID and everything, he had none. And so they come to our office, whether it's night or day, they reach us 24/7, and they'll call our office and say, we need some information and such, if you have any ID and file. And that's why now we got pictures with our ID, which makes it better. But we had manually before, but now we have it more electronically, so we could print an ID card for that person or the family member and get it to them. So we do help medically also. So we're one of the entities that they could reach 24/7 and get assistance with getting information. Some folks don't like us because we also deal with the courts of giving the address for serving as a juror. That's your civil rights, and so they're gonna come to any entity to get your information to serve as a juror. So they not only come to elections, but they're gonna go to BMV, and everybody wants to drive. So they're gonna know your information, and they're gonna get you to serve as a juror, because that's your civil rights, also civics rights.
So let me ask you, if a person from the Virgin Islands, say living in Atlanta, Miami, New York, wherever, been there for a minute, registered and voted in the States, they just can't come in and just vote.
No. When you go to the States now, many of the states, when you go for your driver's license, they automatically register you as a voter. So persons need to make sure that when they're registering that they look at these things to get a driver's license. So when you come down, there's a form, and our form asks you plainly if you're registered anywhere else. Again, the onus is on you to tell the truth, because you're swearing in when you register. You take an oath to register. So you say that you're not registered anywhere else. Or if you say you're registered in Atlanta, we take the information down on that form. We then send to Atlanta to cancel you. So each of them work with each other. If you go to the States and register, they send us information and say that Peter Ottley came to register in Atlanta. You need to cancel him there in the Virgin Islands. That's what we do. So we have that system. Again, some do slip through, but majority of the time they are cancelled that way, either or. They also have where I can go on the website for some of those states, and I can ask for your voter information. I can see it. So I could look in there and see that you're registered to vote without you even telling me. And that's what I did before with someone, but we'll not talk about that today, because that's a legal battle.
Before I let you go, right, let's talk a little bit about the gubernatorial races. How does that work? I mean, you have a runoff only. You can have a runoff in the primary.
Yeah, yes, you can. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. It depends. Because it's usually in the general is 50% or more, right? So that's what you're getting at. The primary, no, the highest vote together gonna go forward for the gubernatorial if they are, or the delegate, same thing. But it's within the party, so each of them running against each other, and then the highest one will go forward.
Okay.
And then when you go to the general, they need 50% or more. So that's where now you're going to have, so just an example, you have one from the Republican, one from the Democrats, one from the ICM, and then you have an independent. So you have 4 governors running. So, of course, the votes are going to be split along the way, and then some people don't even vote, so then you may end up having a runoff. So as you see on the calendar, the runoff, we have to plan for the runoff, and the runoff is mandated by federal law, not Virgin Islands Code. It's in the Organic Act, so that's what we have to follow. So within 14 days after the election, we have to be ready to do the runoff. So on the calendar, the election day is the 3rd of November. The runoff day is the 17th of November. So we already know, and I can tell you based on the Organic Act, is right here, Section 11 in the Organic Act deals with this, and also with the delegate to Congress position. So if there's a runoff, that's the date that we have to do it. And historically, we have had runoff with the delegate race and the gubernatorial. That's before my time. In my time, we had 2 gubernatorial runoff. So I'm preparing for a runoff. The legislature need to prepare to give me the money for a runoff. That's what I would like to say to that.
So in preparing the runoff stuff, as far as material and redoing ballots, what's the cost factor?
Well, the cost is it's going to be less, right? Because you have less contests on the ballot, but you're going to have an estimate how much ballots you're going to order. So it's still a cost. I won't say it's exorbitant, but it is a cost that we have to be able to bear. Election night. So once the results start coming in election night, we could tell if they're going to be a runoff and with who, right? So as they're doing that, the board members are looking and monitoring what's going on in election. I'm looking at the results already. So by the time that night finish, I already know who the names are going to be to prepare for the runoff. So I get with the voting technician, and I said, these are the names we're going to have to deal with. And then they start to put it in the machine the next day at least, how the ballot's going to be set up. Because now we got to do a whole new ballot set up on the system with those 2 candidates and that office. We coordinate with Nebraska. That's who does our printing of our ballots and whatnot. So in the next couple of days, maybe by the Monday or whatever, or the Friday, we're going to be sending them information. And at the same time, I'm calculating how much ballots we need, percentage per polling place. So I go into a report, I print all the voters for all the polling places. I go to the board and I recommend we're going to order 70% paper ballots, right? And 30% going to be the electronic. So that's what we do. They approve the numbers, and then I send that report up to the states. I need this amount of ballots, whatever. They send it UPS, so we usually get it back pretty quick. And they send it back with a invoice in there stating the quantity of every ballot. I get that in my office. Then I have staff members coming with poll workers, and we count every ballot. We check the packages to make sure they're accurate, because then the next day when we're giving it to the judge to go out with, they have to have accurate. So we need to know how much we're sending out, how much remains, how much not used, and then those are the ones that stay there based on if spoil, that's count. So it's a quick turnaround process, and like I said, that's where we have to be prepared, because we can do an election, a special election at any time, but the runoff and the election night, we already know who's going to be the runoff, and we start that information between me and the voting technician in St. Croix. Then we wrap it up, get the report ready. She design a draft ballot for me. I look at the draft ballot, and then we approve it and send it to be printed by ES&S in Nebraska.
So when you talk about printing ballots, right, as a paper ballot, that have nothing to do with the machine.
Correct.
It's 2 different things.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we send the ballots to be printed.
You don't necessarily use all the paper ballots.
No, we don't, because we have them, but they don't usually use ours. So over the years we learn, and so we would add a less and less percentage, because again the goal is to get everybody to mostly use electronic. And why? Because the electronic paper, which is the activation card, you have that forever. They don't spoil, and they don't get bad. But the paper ballots, once you print them, you got to what you call it, shred them, because you can't use that ballot again. So we know, of course, the law says you must have both, and we will never get rid of the paper ballots. Just that we'll have less percentage based on the number of persons that want paper ballot, that they mark themselves and feed it in tabulator. But the electronic machine, again, for the disabled and a lot of the young people like technology, you just go there, you press the button, you print your card out, you review your ballot, and then you put it in the tabulator. So the one machine tabulates both paper ballot and the card. And then when you come to do audit, it tells us 20 paper ballots in this box and 5 cards. It tells us everything. I'll show you one of the tapes one of these days. I'll print you a copy. It shows everything, so we know what's in that box. Has to match what's on the tape and what's on the jump drive.
Great. Register today.
Register and participate. And don't wait until the last minute, because 30 days before the election process ends, the voting, you can't vote anymore. Register to vote. 30 days before, as the calendar, and I'm leaving a calendar with you, 30 days before registration closes, because that gives us time to prepare for the election, because then we're going to have people participating in early voting. Once that process is done, we have to send that record up to Nebraska. They take out all those names from the record, and those persons can't show up to vote on election day again. They send us back down a secure file, and those are the persons that's going to be eligible to vote.
Curious. Have you had an election and through an error or something had to disqualify somebody? In-house error.
No, not through an election. You try to disqualify prior to the election, right? So you don't disqualify during the election. We had some technical issues in 1 year, and then we went ahead and buy some equipment to help improve that, because when we transmit data from St. Croix to St. Thomas, they were kind of sluggish and slow, and it didn't come over as it should, and so we had a long delay in getting the results out. That was 2022 election, and they had an uproar in the community why the election results is taking so long. So we went and spent some money to get an updated technology now that it comes over, and it comes over secure in the cloud, but it's there. Usually disqualify persons prior to them running, and I've disqualified many persons, 2024, 2022, and so forth. So it's part of the process, and they have the reasons for why they are disqualified, and that's just part of the process.
Okay. Aye. So this election, we're looking forward to a highly spirited one.
Yes, it will be, because, like I said, gubernatorial election usually get more turnout, more participation of the voters also. And so you look forward to that. Like I said, I don't get involved until May when it's official, because everyone can say they're running, but some of them, when they see the costs involved, especially if you're running for a territorial position, you have to spend a lot of money, because you got to go to all 3 islands to campaign, and you're on your team, so it costs money. And gubernatorial, the delegate, and the senator at large, those are all territorial positions, and so they have to do a lot of campaigning. With technology now, people do a lot of Facebook or things like that, but the elders are not with all that social media and technology, so you still have to go door to door or have events where they can attend and hear your platform. But we're encouraging folks to start early, get out there and get to the public and sell yourself and your platform. And again, get the persons to register to vote before that time, because 30 days prior to each election, we're going to be closed for registration.
And lastly, how do you get the young people to register to vote?
Well, again, it's back to, like you say, appealing candidates, getting them involved. So it starts with everyone. I think the parties, the churches, the school, the parents. But again, it's everyone needs to get involved. Again, we only could conduct what we do as our office function, but the people in the community are the ones to reach out. And like I said, we need to get candidates that inspire them and empower them and encourage them to participate in the process. Again, when I go to the younger generation, we do election every day of our lives, but we don't look at it that way. In the morning, you get up, you decide, what am I going to eat? Eggs or no eggs? White bread or green bread? So you do a process of deciding what you're going to do. And so it's the same thing. And I say again, ending with this, you don't want your grandmother deciding what kind of sneakers you're going to wear, right? Because they're going to pick the Converse and what they're familiar with. So that's the same thing happening in election. The elders are the one that participate, 45 and up. They're the one that vote consistently. So we need the persons 18 to 44 to get involved in the process. And so it may take some of them running and not letting the same persons run all the time. Get involved in the process in many ways. Yeah, you could be elected, or you could be on a committee, or you could be helping somebody else if you don't want to run for politics. But we are involved. So the elected leaders make decisions that impact all of us. That impacts they're the government. So they're gonna make decisions that impact you, whether you vote or not. And like I say again, if you don't vote, you have no complaint. Don't complain if you don't vote. When you vote, you could participate and let them know what you feel or don't feel. But if you didn't vote to put them or not put them there, then you have to live with what you got.
And say candidates that's running for boards and different position other than the Senate. How many of those you have?
We haven't heard of much yet. Those that are on the board may run again. So for the election cycle, election board members, we do have 4 running one term and then 3 the other, because they rotate, they're staggered terms. So, and they have 4-year terms. The same board of education, they may have a few running. So the boards are very important. Boards of education and election, 2 E's. The board of election, again, they're there dealing with the day-to-day operations and policies and laws of the election system, and a lot of them end up becoming election leaders, as your senator, etc. So it's a requirement to have boards that help propel or change laws or whatnot for the future. The same thing with education. The board of education is like the watchdog for the commissioner of education and the educational department. So you want persons on there with knowledge, experience, etc. So the boards are critical to any entity in government. All the boards in community, not because they're not elected either, they are critical. So serving on boards is recommended and highly encouraged, so you could get that experience if you want to launch into the more political career in the future.
Great. And lastly, my dear, what would you like the people to know?
Like I say, your voice is your vote, and your vote is your voice. So participate. Again, not only register, but come out that day and cast your ballot, cast your vote. Thank you for the opportunity.
And do you still need volunteers to...
Election officials, yes, we're recruiting. Thank you for that. We got the application is on our website, www.vivote.gov, election official. Again, we're looking for Hispanics, we're looking for males. Again, the services are start at 6 a.m. to at least 8 p.m. the night. You can't leave, can't be on your cell phone. So that's encouraging or discouraging for some. And then we feed you breakfast, lunch, and a snack for the afternoon time. So we cater for the persons working for us, because you can't go anywhere and you have to be there from 6 a.m. to at least 8 p.m. in the night. So sign up. We encourage anyone to sign up.
And how do they do that? They come to the office?
They can come to the office, but like I mentioned on the website, the application is also there. You call an election official / poll or poll worker is the old terms that we used to be. So yes, we are looking for diverse persons and registered. We do train you, so you'll be trained for the position, and you get a stipend based on the position that you hold. So it starts from $175 up to $300. The judge get $300 for that time that they serve.
And these people can't come with no...
You can't come with...
shirt and I'm representing nobody.
Correct. You can't come out with any candidate shirt or no representative. Even when you work on election day, you can't come with a candidate shirt on there to work. So you can't. You have to leave all your biases behind. You have to be impartial and neutral when you come there. And you can't be talking about the electoral person, encouraging anyone to vote in any particular way. That's not our duty. Our duty is to assist you with the process and the process only.
And before you go, how much of the people that you've been working with that faithfully still there?
We have maybe over 100 that's still there. Wow. They love what they do and they continue to serve. Back in the day when you had the Subtronic, we used to hire up to 300 people. It was a lot. But now we're down to maybe 200, a little bit more, 100 in each district. So, based on what funding we have, we go through the cycles and we hire them. And the judges are experienced, so we usually use the same judges all the time, because you don't want to keep going through judges and training up again, because that's a very responsible and accountable position. So we have judges that have been serving with us over 18, 20, 30 years. At the 60th anniversary, we honored some of them. Some of them still serving with us, and they've been there from day one. Some of them Miss Tadman got one as a clerk, and she's still there now as a e-poll clerk. She could move higher, but she said she liked that position. She's been there since Miss Tadman time. So we have persons that are seasoned, experienced, and love what they do for the people. We are doing this for the community.
I love it. I see the pride and the love for your job. So
Yes, I do.
I know we're good at.
We love the election cycle because that's when we get involved and then a little hyper. And non-election year, we're preparing, but it's a little slower. So we look forward to the election every 2 years.
Great, great, great. Thanks for dropping by, sharing information with us. And we're going to make sure that our listeners get a number and volunteer and participate. And participate where we say, hey, the turnout
Increase.
the percentages increase. That's what we're looking for.
That's good.
And then nobody ain't gonna be arguing, you know. I vote,
Yeah,
and you live with the winners and the losers and whatever.
that's great. That's true. Thank you. Thank you too, and thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to coming back during the election cycle live and doing some of your programs. And we also will be sending some of our ads that we have to advertise during the election cycle to all the radio stations. So we'll make sure we include you, because Ottley was one of our faithful persons, and I know you pushing on his same legacy. So we thank you all. We thank you both.
My house is your house.
Thank you.
Okay. It's the people's house.
People's house. Thank you.
Supervisor of election, Ms. Carolyn Fawkes.